Next on 12 News Sunday Square Off.
Division of church and state! Division of church and state!
Is it a war on women's health?
So even Jesus, under Obama's definition of a religious employer, would not qualify because he served people of other faiths.
Or a fight for religious freedom? The legislature chooses sides. Behind the controversial bills, one of the most powerful voices inside the legislature. Cathi Herrod joins me for our Newsmaker interview. Then,
but I think we have to be fair in not ascribing the rights to one group of individuals at the expense of another.
The contraception bill is killed, then comes back to life. Will it make it all the way to the governor's desk? Plus,
join the fight at BivensForSenate.com.
now you can call him Dot Dunn. Former Democratic Party Chair Don Bivens drops out of the U.S. Senate race, clearing the way for fellow Dem Richard Carmona. Should Republicans be concerned? 12 News Sunday Square Off starts now. And good morning and welcome to 12 News Sunday Square Off. I'm Bram Resnick. The debate at the state legislature over the last few weeks has been dominated by women's health issues in bills limiting abortion services and contraception coverage. No less controversial, an anti-bullying bill that was apparently killed in the House after passing the Senate. At the epicenter of all these stories, the Center for Arizona Policy. It's one of the most powerful lobbyists at the Capitol, but it's not so well known to many Arizonans. Joining us this morning to talk about the group and its work at the Capitol is Cathi Herrod, president of the Center for Arizona Policy. Thanks so much for joining us on Square Off.
Thanks, Bram.
Good to see you. The first question I get from many viewers following those stories is, who is Cathi Herrod and what does she want? Well, what would you tell them?
Well, I'm a mom. I have 2 children who are now adults. I'm concerned about our country, the future of our country, the future of our state, what my children and my grandchildren are going to have for their future. So I'm involved. I think as a citizen, each one of us has a duty to really pay attention to what's going on, to register to vote, to engage in the political process. So that's what I do. And
what about CAP? It seems to have a very strong religious dimension to it. I know on the website many of the bills you support are supported by Scripture. A citation from Scripture.
Well, at Center for Arizona Policy, our mission is to promote and defend foundational principles. For us, that's the sanctity of human life from its very beginning to its natural end. It's marriage and family. Having strong marriages and families will lead to a strong economy, a strong culture, and religious liberty, standing for religious liberty. Every issue that we address, there may be a scriptural foundation, but there's also a sound public policy reason as far as why this is just simply good policy.
But you do work closely with Valley churches, Arizona churches, to pursue issues that are important to them.
Very much. Center for Arizona Policy, I would call it an evangelical Christian organization.
All right. Now, CAP takes credit for passing 101 pieces of legislation over the last 10 to 15 years. That's a remarkable record. The governor signed your bills at the group's annual dinners. Dozens of Republicans are there on stage with you. What makes you so powerful?
Well, we are a nonpartisan organization, so it's not about political parties. It's about the issues.
Has there ever been a Democrat on stage with you?
We've had Democrats who have supported our legislation in the past. Unfortunately, in today's Arizona world, it's more divided than it should be. But if you look at the merits of the issues and what we do, we represent the views, the values of a majority of Arizonans. So those who favor life from the beginning of conception to the natural end. So our organization has had influence. We've had success because we represent the views of many Arizonans.
Okay. Now let's talk about some of those values and the group's views and their views. The first bill this session that put you and your group in the national headlines, the anti-bullying bill that passed the Senate but died in the House. Here's what you said about the bill. I'd like to put that graphic up on the screen if we can. Quote, you said, the groups that are pushing the anti-bullying campaigns are the same organizations working to redefine marriage and to force cultural acceptance and affirmation of homosexual lifestyles. There is no doubt about it, the bullying theme is agenda-driven propaganda. Were you bullied when you were younger? Do you know someone who was bullied when you were younger? I
certainly was a victim of bullying. I think most people have some type of experience that they could call bullying. Bullying is wrong under any circumstances, and we've made that clear. We certainly don't favor bullying. No one does. But there are state laws that address the bullying issue. Those laws need a chance to operate. There was simply not the need for the bill that was proposed this year, and so there is an agenda behind some of these bills. So the issue is, anyway.
But I guess, but what was that bullying real and painful to you, as it is to many children, or was it gay-driven propaganda, as the statement suggests?
Well, schools have the tools that they need to address bullying, and that the legislature, as recently as last year, passed a bill addressing the bullying issue. We believe that that's a sufficient policy in the state law for now, and let's move forward.
So why not leave it at that, instead of introducing politics into an issue that, as I said, is very real and painful? Because suddenly, for the first time, the bullying issue has become politicized by ascribing it to gay rights groups.
Oh, the bullying issue was politicized last year with some of the versions that were introduced. This is certainly not the first time that that the bullying agenda has been had political overtones to it.
Democratic Senator David Shapiro said you killed this bill. You've never denied it. Why did you kill it?
Well, that's almost comical, the idea that as one person that I could single-handedly kill a piece of legislation. There are 60 state representatives and 30 state senators. They certainly are the ones that have the say in what happens at the state capitol.
They certainly are, but as someone who has had a role in passing 101 bills, you certainly must know how to do away with a bill, how to sideline a bill.
Well, state legislators support many of the issues, obviously, that we address, as well as many Arizonans.
So you had nothing to do with killing that bill?
I had a stand. I certainly had influence, but our organization had influence, but that's because we share the values of Arizonans and the state legislators.
And you described your group as pro-family, yet many moms I heard from, parents and children, after you came out with that statement, said your position was anti-family because it was hurtful to their children. So which families are you for then?
Well, Bram, I've heard from many parents, many concerned citizens about what's going on, and they support our position.
Do you recognize, though, that your position was hurtful to those families whose children are suffering from bullying?
Well, I would encourage those families, perhaps they're not aware of the current laws and what is already in the law and what schools are supposed to be doing with bullying. And really, every citizen and parent should check with their local school district and find out what they're doing about bullying and making sure that they're following the current state law that requires them to address bullying.
Let's talk about another bill that's in the headlines as well, House Bill 2625, the contraception bill, making national headlines as well. It would allow private employers to drop birth control coverage if it offends their religious beliefs. So if this bill is about religious freedom, why not go all the way and allow any private employer who's offended by any medication or procedure to not cover it? Why stop at contraception?
Well, because the issue that we have both in the Obama mandates on health care as well as our current state law that requires our current state law requires if an employer provides health insurance, then they have to provide family planning. The exemption for religious organizations is very narrow in the current state law, and there's no exemption for an employer who owns his own business and has a religious belief regarding contraception. So the mandate issue is about contraception. It's not about other forms of medication, and it's also more than just contraception. It's also abortion medication, and that's gotten lost in this debate. So let's emphasize here, this is not about restricting birth control. It's not about stopping any woman from getting birth control or getting abortion medication. It's simply saying that as a woman, I have no right to compel anyone to pay for my medication or to provide that medication. That's where it's about religious liberty. It's not about access to birth control or abortion medication.
So are men and women compelling people to pay for their, I don't know, any prescription medication at all then? Again, why just limit it
again, because
to contraception if it is about religious freedom? Take a stand for religious freedom and expand this to any procedure that someone might object to.
It's because the government is saying that an employer has to provide contraception and abortion medication. That's why it's addressing that issue and not other medication.
Are vasectomies also covered?
Government's not mandating vasectomies. The government's mandating contraception and birth control and abortion medication.
So the government, an employer would not have to cover vasectomies?
Today I'm addressing religious liberty, and an employer who has a religious belief regarding family planning, regarding abortion medication, should not be forced by the government to provide that type of service.
So it sounds like you're saying this is about abortion.
It's about abortion medication and about contraception, and we've made that clear from the beginning.
The bill was killed in the Senate last week. It's coming back. How confident are you can get this passed, even though Governor Brewer apparently opposes it?
Governor Brewer has not begun to say that she opposes it. Let's get it straight. She hasn't read the bill. She said that as recently as a couple of days ago. She's concerned about religious liberty. She voiced that concern. Whether the bill passes the Senate, stay tuned. We'll see.
Have you spoken to the governor about this bill?
I've not spoken to the governor about the bill.
And you're asking 5 legislators to change their no votes, senators to change their no votes to a yes vote. What happens if they don't?
Well, we will continue to try to advocate and to talk about the merits of this issue and the facts. I encourage listeners to read the bill, to find out what the bill is. It's been so distorted in the press. Read what the bill actually does and doesn't do. And I believe that most Arizonans, when you read what the bill's doing, would stand on the side of religious liberty, because that's what this is about.
Finally, it seems to me there's a contradiction here. With most of the 100 bills you've helped pass, you're asking government to do what churches themselves have been unable to persuade Americans to do. Doesn't that violate our religious freedom?
Not at all, Bram. You look at the issue of abortion, if you want to look at the life issue, poll after poll now shows that a majority of Americans, strong majorities, favor the type of bills that we're promoting. Parental consent before a minor can have an abortion, informed consent before a woman can have has an abortion, an ultrasound requirement. That's supported by a majority of Arizonans and Americans. That's the type of legislation we've been advocating for.
I looked at many of the polls last night because I've wondered about them. I have to say they are very divided on these subjects and not all that conclusive. But again, why do you need government to do what churches themselves have been unable to do?
Well, a chief aim of government is to protect life and liberty, and most of our bills go to the issue of protecting life and liberty for the citizens of Arizona.
All right. Cathi Herrod with the Center for Arizona Policy, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, Bram.